Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of art, it's the Tenet Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson, coming to you from the 40 West Arts District in Lakewood, Colorado. And joining me from his art bunker in Rapid City, South Dakota, you know him as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world. It's your friend and mine, Wes Brown.
Hey, Todd, how you doing? Oh my gosh, we're still here.
I'm glad it's Tuesday.
The apocalypse hasn't happened yet, although I feel like it could be any day.
Right. And yesterday, Monday, we're recording this on a Tuesday. Monday felt like a real Monday yesterday.
Did it?
Between the craziness in the world and everything else going on.
Yeah. So anyway, I get a feeling we'll be talking a little bit about that stuff today. So, but do you want to talk about art and ag?
I want to remind everyone that our annual art festival that we host with the Fleischer Family Farm here in Lakewood is on the horizon. It's Art and Ag 2026. This is our 5th year, and we will have 2 events, June 20th to kick off summer and September 12th. So mark your calendars and come out and support local artists, buy art, and buy some farm fresh produce. If you're an artist that would like to participate in one of these events, hit us up. You can DM us on our socials, or you can email me direct at todd@toddpearson.com. Are you excited? Are you coming down?
Yes, I'm always excited about going to Art and Ag.
Torado, I assume, will be there, like throwing down some amazing barbecue. You know,
nice.
You can get some smoked brisket and some collard greens and some banana pudding.
That would be awesome.
Paul will be there with all his amazing produce, and I think we're going to have a fantastic roster this year.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to the trip, and it should be a great weekend. So, man, my tongue is all twisted today.
Yeah. How are those muscle relaxants?
They're kicking in, evidently.
Maybe I took muscle relaxants.
I'll have to delete some of this stuff. So anyway, we'll make it a little bit more professional. Anyway.
Wes Brown is on drugs, ladies and gentlemen.
I am, literally.
All right, let's get this show on the road, Wes Brown.
All right, let's do it.
You know where we're headed this week?
I think it's in Canada somewhere.
Yes, we're going north of the border.
Nice.
Yep, we are extremely honored to talk with our next guest. He is a Canadian contemporary fine artist and illustrator, a professor at the Ontario College of Art and Design University, and is listed as one of the top 100 illustrators in the world by art book publisher Taschen. You can check out his work at his website, GaryTaxali.com, and you can follow him on Instagram at Taxali. Gary, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How's the weather today in Canada?
It's cold. I don't speak Fahrenheit, but it's parka and toque weather. You don't use that word in America. You call them caps or something, but in Canada we call them toques. It's a frosty one today.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Oh, okay.
And so, I'm very familiar with a lot of the Canadian culture, even though Canada is a very diverse country from east to west. But I do know what a toque is.
Okay.
And so it's that time of year. It's before you get into spring breakup, right? And everything starts to thaw and you get to warm up, right?
Yep.
I just barely scratched the surface in the intro of who you are and what you do, but you have all these awards and accolades that you've received during your incredible life as an artist thus far. Take a moment and introduce yourself to our listeners. Describe a little bit about what you do and the things that you have your hands in.
Sure. And you said I am a fine artist and an illustrator. So for me, that's just a descriptor by saying I'll do exhibitions and galleries, as well as work for commercial clients, like publications and advertising agencies. But off of that, I've done many other things, such as created several lines of toys, vinyl figures. I entered that world a little bit. I wrote and illustrated a kid's book. I've been working on sculptures. I've been doing some stuff for public art. Working on a solo show in 2 years for a regional gallery up here in Canada. and I teach. And I also do workshops. I'll be going to Germany in October to do a workshop and a talk at a town called Constance, Lake Constance, which is where Austria and Switzerland and Germany meet. And
Hmm.
there's a lake there, and it's a really pretty little town. And so I'm looking forward to that trip. So yeah, I do a lot of fun stuff like that. More traveling before the pandemic, though. One year, I think it was like in 18 months, I went to Asia 3 times, trips to Hong Kong and went to India just for talks and teaching and to jury shows and stuff. That has kind of quieted down because a lot of people now, prefer Teams and Zoom and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and they could save money rather than flying me around. But yeah, I think I've been pretty lucky in my career in that I'm one of those artists that doesn't really make a distinction in my style between my personal work and my commercial work. And that has been good for my career in the sense that both have blurred over into each other. And that's been really nice.
Yeah, not everybody can say that when they work in both realms, right? It's hard to balance that, I think, for a lot of people.
It is hard to balance that, especially since you're at the mercy of two different kinds of things. Like, for example, in the world of illustration, it's good business sense to do a commission for a magazine, let's say for $1,000. Whereas in the fine art world, it's good business sense to sell a picture 10 times for $100 to 10 different people because you're getting your work out there and you're building up collectors. So there are different considerations that concurrently happen.
And how do you, I mean, it's amazing to me all of the different things that you have done and that you do. How do you strike your work and normal everyday life balance? Like how do you differentiate or how do you separate the two? Or do you?
I do separate the two. I have a studio manager that helps, first of all, with stuff like shipping and dealing with like collectors and updating the inventory, ordering new prints, and just managing studio, even like cleaning brushes and stuff like that. So there is that component. Teaching is for this semester. There's only a couple classes, so it's manageable. I used to work at all hours. I don't. I keep my evenings and weekends free. At a certain point, you realize, life is also about enjoying its spoils and not just using every waking moment because I could easily do that. I have no shortage of ideas. And so I'm just more selective now, the ideas that I do grab. There are big projects that are happening, so I do have to set aside time. And then I also will have stuff that happens at the spur of the moment. Like, for example, a publication or an agency will contact me and they'll want an illustration in a few days. And so I can work. I don't want to use the word fast because that sort of implies that, I'm rushing something, but I can work economically and work within the parameters of short deadlines because I have such a graphic style and it's not labor intensive like some of my colleagues who work in a more realistic way, let's say, and have to do more involved paintings. A lot of it is just too like kind of on the job training. I've been doing it for so long. I have a pretty good gauge about what's involved. Sometimes I'll just say no if I can't fit it in, and that's okay. They'll come back if they want.
Right. Right. Did you start as an illustrator?
That's correct. I started as an illustrator, and then just like right after school was done, I was in a bar with a friend of mine who had also graduated from the program, and Larry and I got drunk. And at a certain point in the evening, we promised each other that we would move to New York City. And the next day, Larry phoned me and said, "Were you joking?" And I said, Not if you're not joking." So a week later, we packed a van and moved to New York. And then within the first week, I was at a bar in the East Village called Max Fish on Ludlow Street. And there was a group of people who were really sociable. and they were friendly. So I started talking to them, and they were really nice artists. And I started hanging out with them. And one of them was this guy, Tom Corn. Tom was sort of like a bit of like an elder statesman in that scene. He was a Rastafarian man who was close friends with Jean-Michel Basquiat and Keith Haring. So he knew all these like New York Lower East Side artists like in their heyday. And so Tom would curate these shows. And so Tom asked me to be in a show, and I said to Tom, I'm not an artist, I'm an illustrator. And then Tom looked at me dumbfounded and said, I never heard anybody say that before. He said, illustration's art, just do whatever you want. And I said, okay. And then Tom sort of lit a fire under me. And then I loved it so much. And then I started doing more and more exhibitions with Tom in that circle. And there were these two brothers from Oklahoma, Matt and Mark Enger. They look like bikers, and they took me under their wing. They taught me how to shoot a gun. We would shoot guns in their studio in Brooklyn, and we would smoke joints and we would screen print. And they were like older brothers to me. They would like buy me pizza slices and beer because I didn't have any money, and so they kind of invited me into their circle, and just amazing human beings, really, really lovely people. And so they opened my eyes, and I started doing personal work ever since then. And then it grew. And then I was invited to have a two-person show at a gallery in Los Angeles called Luz de Jesus, the Light of Jesus Gallery, which is a really well-known lowbrow gallery. And I said to the gallery owner, Billy Shire, I'll do it, but only if it's a solo show. I don't want anyone stealing my thunder. And I said, okay. And so I agreed to the show, and I thought, this is amazing. The show coming up. And by then I had moved back to Toronto because my dad passed away. And so I thought, okay, I'll hang out in Toronto for a while, then eventually go back to New York. But I met this woman, and we moved in together. So I was hanging out in Toronto. And then all of a sudden 9/11 happened. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, shucks, like this is going to be a problem for me. As an Indian person, I was like even getting targeted before then. Remember the first World Trade Center bomb in 93?
Right.
Yeah. So I got, a hard time for that, like across the border and stuff. So I thought, oh my God, there's no way they're letting me in the country. But even though I had all my ducks in a row, I contacted a lawyer, brokers, and everything, did all the paperwork, did all the right stuff. I made it into the country, and I had this opening. And from then, my career took off in the fine art world. That gallery is such an amazing gallery. They did a lot to promote me. I met a lot of artists on that trip. And I got invited to be in publications like Juxtapose and all kinds of group shows. And I met artists like Shepard Fairey. And it was a really nice transition from like the illustration thing into a world that I didn't know about, because the lowbrow world really embraced illustration in an odd kind of way. So it was kind of an easy transition for me.
Now, where you went to college, did they really kind of hammer the whole commercial side of things into you?
They didn't, but the opposite happened. So every year I was studying illustration. I'd always take a class in abstract painting, experimental painting. And those professors said, you should stop doing the commercial work and do real art. And then, one day I said to one of those professors, I said, my illustration profs never tell me to stop doing abstract art. They think it's great to both. I found that the commercial illustrators were more open-minded than the fine artists were.
Sure.
Interesting. Were you engaging with art as a child?
Only in the sense that I was super lucky to be born into this awesome family. My father encouraged it. He saw that I had talent and a love for it, so he would take me to community arts classes and weekend painting classes, and really wanted me to just kind of keep going at it. My mother to this day just loves everything I do. Like, it's my biggest fan, and my sister's my lawyer and agent. So the three of them were always in my camp. So art was always something that was encouraged, which is not really a common thing in Indian families. And I credit my parents for sticking up for me because we'd have dinner parties and their friends would say, like, why are you getting like a real education, in science or math, in medicine or something like that? And my dad would stick up for me and stuff. So that was awesome that I had them on my side.
That's really cool that he saw that early on
Yeah.
in your life and encouraged it and, allowed you to enroll in classes to help move you along, to give that kind of support. Not everybody gets that.
It's true. I got lucky.
And I heard or I read somewhere that wasn't always the case. Like in school, you weren't always necessarily encouraged to fulfill these dreams of doing art or being an artist. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, that was the hilarious thing. Like guidance counselors would try and talk me into getting a real education, talk me out of this like art hobby thing, and think about like a more solid future. Even a kindergarten teacher complained that when he would read stories to the class, I would sort of disappear to the corner and draw pictures,
Hmm.
and not realizing I was an illustrator at the age of 4.
Wow. Did your other classmates recognize like your
Yes.
talent?
Yeah, I think they did. And I'm friends with people still to this day who like to remind me that they saw me doing doodles ever since I was a little child and stuff, which is it's nice.
Well, they even say doodling for some people helps them learn. While somebody's lecturing, if you're doodling, there's these connections being made. So for rote memory to come back.
That's a good point. It's creativity.
Yeah.
It's mark making. I think is an innate thing for all human beings, whether they're artists or not. Just give somebody a pen, write a piece of paper and a phone, and they'll just start, drawing something, or put them in a lecture hall, and like you said, they'll doodle. Unfortunately, we live in a world that suppresses creativity.
Yeah.
It doesn't see it as a natural form of human expression, or if it does, it's novelty, and it should be confined to people who have talent versus the masses, which I think is really unfair.
Yeah, and you even hear that a lot of artists that go to art school, they'll be working doing their thing and their instructors are just hammering them instead of and we've talked about this before. I wouldn't respond well with that because I would just like throw my hands up and say, obviously I'm not good enough. Where my wife, who went to art school, that kind of drove her a little bit like, oh, you don't think I can do this? Watch, and so she would I think she responded more positive to that kind of negative input than I would. So it's interesting, we hear it all the time. That I went to art school to do one thing, and the instructors wanted me to do something totally different. They wouldn't let them have their own creativity even.
That is such a great thing you said, and I'm super cognizant of that with my own pedagogy, my own instruction with my students, because they're all doing so many different things. I don't want to put my way of doing things onto them. I would rather them do whatever they want to find their creativity. Like for example, tomorrow I have a final critique, and this is an illustration class, right? So we did illustration assignments, and I did hammer them with some of the principles of communication and design, composition and
Right.
color harmony and stuff like that. But this assignment is called anything. And I said, that's the only parameter. I said, it could even be a film. It could even be abstract art. Why would you give something so open? So because if you're not doing anything creative that you love, how can you find that same love in illustration? You need to sort of start at a point where you are just doing this passionate thing and bring that vibe into illustration. And that's how to become a successful illustrator.
That makes
That,
so much sense.
yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing that you facilitate that and you encourage them in that way because that's not always like Wes just touched on in my art school experience, even though it was a positive experience, that wasn't always the case. What does teaching do for you? And does it inform the work that you do?
That's a great question. Teaching does a lot for me in the way that it helps me, I guess, put words to the rationale that I have in creativity, solving visual problems, and articulating it in a concise way. So young people, emerging artists can maybe understand that themselves. Like, for example, I was never really taught that in design or in illustration, it should have a good balance between form and function. And there is a way of communicating where the audience can understand what you're trying to say, but at the same time, you're not losing who you are and you're maintaining your aesthetic and your style, right? And so teaching has helped me articulate that. It's made me a better speaker when I do talks. But what I also love about teaching is that it keeps me in my place. It humbles me. It doesn't matter what you do. The world shows and who collects your work and who you're corresponding with and awesome things that happen. To the students, you're the guy that marks them. And so it's a one-way relationship. I'm there to encourage them, to help them with their creativity. So I don't really talk too much about myself because, some people don't like that. They get confused. They're already fragile with their creativity. It's made me deal with all kinds of different personalities better. Sometimes young people will be combative because they're used to being combative because, like, who knows what their lives are like. So they'll see adults as adversaries, maybe based on some bad experiences and stuff. And so I have to be kind of sensitive to that. I don't take things personally, things that they say, their messaging and stuff, which I used to in the beginning. They realize they're young people, right?
Right.
Let stuff go. I try and foster a relaxed environment where people don't feel stressed out. When I first started teaching, I had double the assignments. It was like I would just drill them with, like, okay, this is how you have to do. If you want to be an illustrator, think of a good idea in 2, 3 days. It's got to be finished painting. Everybody put your work on the wall. It has to be super professional. And that would upset a lot of students. And then I pulled back over time and realized I can't put my advanced way of doing things onto them. It's better that I sort of work with their speed. And their speed is also different from the speed that my generation had. It's different. I don't want to say better or worse. Some things are better in that they can multitask. They can, have a phone and be typing things and, I don't know, like Snapchatting and still maybe be drawing. And as long as they're producing good work, I'm happy. At the same time, my brain kind of can't get around that, right? So I also have to understand that human beings kind of evolve and sort of work with them. And so that's made me kind of more open-minded too.
Yeah. And everybody's brain works differently. Even though you're giving them an assignment and it may be very specific, everybody comes from a different approach or a different idea and way of working, right? I mean, I'm a photographer, and if you gave an assignment to 10 photographers, you're going to get 10 different approaches and visions, right? So it's the same thing with illustration.
It's true, yeah, and that's a lovely thing that there are infinite solutions to a problem. For some young people, right, that kind of creative autonomy is just too much because they've never dealt with that open-ended way of approaching creativity. They've been told, trace this, draw this, look at this thing, study the light and shadow in this way, and even copy the work of others. So I'll have students who will come to my classes and they do fan art. They think that is kind of a way to go. And I don't want to discourage that because I think it is healthy to be drawing and doing something creative and have influences. But at the same time, I kind of gently let them know that in art school is the transition where you start finding yourself and you let go, you become untethered from your sources. Some people, they love that. Other people, it's the scariest thing in the world.
So do you have a way of instructing your students to find their own personal voice?
I do. Some will resist because it's too much, so they'll defer to same old tropes that are out there because they just draw heads over and over again or skulls over and over again, for example. But after a while, though, They generally do. I teach thesis illustration, which is the graduating students, and then the beginning illustrators or second year students. And the thesis ones do have more autonomy. They are more mature and they do understand that having a personal style is essential. So, yeah.
Now, you yourself, I've read that you don't really look at, I mean, obviously you look at illustration with your students, but you don't actively go out there and look and see what's going on in the illustration world. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't look at it not because I'm a snob. It's because I'm a working artist and I have multiple things going on, and my day needs to have a component of coming up with ideas. And I would rather grab my ideas from books and film and just living life rather than the visual solutions of other people who've already figured things out. That's why I don't follow other artists on social media. I just don't want things getting in my head.
Mm.
And sometimes too, we'll go to the same well. Like for example, I'm sure I drive a lot of people nuts, but the last several years, I don't know how many pictures I've done with the U.S. flag, for example. Right? I'm not the only artist who's done that, but some people will send me stuff. Like I'll do a picture, and a stranger will send me something that is a little bit kind of a close idea to somebody else's work. Hey, what do you think of this? Do you think it's cool? I'm sort of like, I have no interest in the other person's work. I don't want to see an idea that's kind of close to mine. I also I'm trying to find my own stuff to say, and I love the work of my friends. I'll look at their work, and I'll go to their exhibitions and support them and stuff like that. And my students I care about, obviously they're like front and center in my mind. But yeah, generally speaking, other artists out there, especially if somebody's good, it's like, uh-oh, somebody's really good. They'll have figured something out. What if one day I came close to that? Now I can never go there.
Right. I think that's an honest thing. I also
Yeah.
do a lot of photography, and there's only so many things you can shoot, and you start to have fear of like reproducing somebody's work. We've been doing this for hundreds of years, and it'd be easy to copy another person. To have that idea constant in your mind, like trying not to look like somebody else's stuff. The fact that you kind of shelter yourself from it, that's pretty interesting.
I learned a long time ago that creativity doesn't come from the mind. The mind likes to take credit for things we make, but I think, both of you can relate to the fact that, when you're in a flow, when you're in the moment, something happens. The Greeks attributed that something happening to the muses because, mortals are too stupid to be creative. So it was the gods who were giving them ideas. And in a way, I kind of love that because if a painting or a picture I make is a flop, I can blame it on the gods. But if it's a success, I can take credit for it. But the way I think about it is not enough credit is given to the physical act of mark making. And it's in that where ideas will surface. So I trust my hand and I trust my brush. I'll trust my pen, whatever utensil I have, to let it say what it wants to say. And I'll just follow along, let it lead the way. And that'll open doors to other things. That said, though, with political stuff, though, I'll be like, for example, enjoying a Netflix show. It'll be like, 10 p.m. or something, and I'll be relaxed. And then all of a sudden, maybe I'll glance at my phone and there'll be some political thing I read, and it's like, oh my gosh. I just came up with an idea. So I gotta go upstairs and spend the next few hours doing this thing. I've even left parties. So where I am in the studio, I'm like, okay, I got to make this picture. Let's just see what happens. And then I'll make it. It'll put it out there. So sometimes there is just, well, here is an idea. But at the same time, I still don't credit it to my mind. I think creativity is something where if you set up parameters, if you're open to it, then it appears. I also trust myself to have been doing it long enough where I don't even know what it feels like to have creative block, whatever that condition is. I think that's a condition for somebody who's not a working artist. Who, I have bills to pay and stuff, right? So I got to make the stuff. It's a part of my job, right? It's an everyday 9 to 5 thing. And the second thing is that the confidence to know that I can make something happen and even have a component of surprising myself by drawing something and putting it together in such a way that could be interesting is kind of the fun play of it. If there's no play involved, then what's the point of doing any of this?
Right.
Right? Play is the essence of creativity. I mean, a 4-year-old knows it. They can't articulate it, but every 4-year-old with a crayon can certainly show you their creativity.
Right. Right. You mentioned artist block. I think it's valid when people say creativity begets creativity, like energy begets energy, right? So the more creative you are, the more ideas come, more creativity comes. Does that seem fair to you?
Absolutely. It's one door opens multiple doors and then it just becomes an ongoing thing. And you also kind of relax into it too. At a certain point, you realize that, this is not everything is going to be successful. The world doesn't see my unsuccessful pictures, right? I just won't, this didn't really go anywhere. There's lots of times where like, yeah, that didn't really work out. And other times I'll find a crappy little sketch. I'm like, I didn't give this thing a chance, right? Okay, I'm gonna maybe try it again. But I also have the support of music, and music gets me going, right? I listen to different kinds of music, but for me, for the most part, it's the Mississippi Delta blues, which for me is impossible for me to listen to without wanting to grab something to draw and paint. It just feeds my soul in a way. I had an exhibition, a solo show. I spent 18 months working on the show, and all I did was listen to the music of Mississippi Fred McDowell for the entire time I did this exhibition. I just listened to his music over and over again, and it was like the greatest thing.
Blues is a universal music, right? And it's interesting how so many different people listen to it. I mean, that just it shows you the power of it, right? It's black music, but you were born in India, you're raised in Canada, and blues is where it's at for you.
Yeah.
Um, I feel the same way. Like if I was on a desert island and there was one genre of music that I had to choose from, blues hands down would be the genre.
You said it really well. It's the struggle, also the making something beautiful from something that is not a beautiful situation, to me humbles me. And that's also why I think I work in such a lo-fi way on like old book pages and covers and stuff, right? There's a humility to the thing already. I defer to its beauty already, right? So it's already like the art supplies, and even like with the screen printing using minimal color, I set up myself in that way. In a way, is kind of like a tip of the hat to incredible human beings like blues musicians, but also the Russian avant garde, who only had a few colors to work with and crappy paper and stuff, and all they had was their talent. But the talent is so immense that a talented person can create magic with almost nothing. And in this tiny little area in the state of Mississippi, in a time in American history, so many geniuses emerged. That in itself is phenomenal. Like to think about how many great musicians concurrently at the same time were creating magic, right? And like it's like there's something in the air, right? I don't know, but something divine maybe, but it's beautiful to think about.
It is. You're talking to people just like the Russians, right? That had very little to work with, living in extreme poverty that would make instruments or fabricate things that they would find and make something out of nothing and then make this beautiful music that tugs on the heartstrings and infiltrates your soul, right? That speaks to the human condition.
Yeah.
It's true. It's wild stuff.
Yeah, I think it's something like, so just like you said, Todd, with the human condition, this is something that's innate in all of us. So having the, we all feel blues at some times or another, may not, and so I think that's why we innately connect to that kind of music. And not that everybody does, but it's so innate in us to have these horrible things happening to us, or maybe shitty conditions that we live in, and be able to pull something beautiful out of it. I think that's like part of humanity in itself. I think, going all the way back to early man, it wasn't an easy life. Painting pictures on cave walls was a way of connecting to bring beauty into the world that was probably somewhat, miserable to live in. So I don't know. That might be a little esoteric thinking, but I don't know.
Not at all. No, it's true. You're right. And humans that can't do it need humans that can do it, right? We all need each other in that way. Think of all the human beings that were there when that music was, being created. Those paintings were being created and got through the day. I'll even get messages with my political stuff that are like really lovely from people, like really like nice messages, like, thank you for saying the things you do. It feels helpless down here, and you as a Canadian are saying this stuff, and I feel too, and it's like, oh, okay, it's nice when you connect with somebody through your work that way.
Yeah.
It's the power of art. You're known for a very distinctive style that resonates with me from a particular era. Talk a little bit about that and how it evolved, how it happened, and how it has evolved over time.
There's only really like a couple of things I can think of, and one of them was my dad would drop my sister and I off at the library for a few hours, and so I could read some books, just find stuff, and I would just go to the stacks and look up cartoons. And then I found a book on the Fleischer brothers. And I didn't know anything about these guys, right? And the book was too heavy for me to like sign out. So every time I go back, nobody else cared about this book. I'd always grab the same book, and then page after page, I would look at their work. And I was enthralled by multiple things, like the beautiful drawings, the amazing line work, the sense of humor, just the entire vibe. I thought this was like the greatest thing. And then came back from a trip, and I was sick. I ended up getting a fever. I was in the hospital, and so my dad felt sorry for me. So he would buy Mad Magazine, the paperbacks from the gift shop. And so that also opened my world, in particular, a guy named Bill Elder. And to this day, I'll do paintings or drawings where I'll just have tons of stuff going on. Where I'll kind of think, okay, the parts aren't that great, but maybe the sum will be greater. But that's kind of a bit of a visual device I learned from Bill Elder, and he's had like a really big impact on me. And a lot, and so and that whole era, I mean, that's from a long time ago. So I didn't understand a lot of the references or the words that they use, but it just became part of my life and my art because I was so absorbed in it over and over again. And then, of course, I started watching like the Betty Boop and animations and Coco the Clown and stuff. And I love the music, the whole Cab Calloway thing. Or like, but this is high art to me. It's like it really is aesthetically really appealing, and my hand just kind of likes to draw in that way too. And then what happened was I went to art school, and then art school was the time. Okay, it's I've got to be cool now and look at the other artists and the influences that all the other art students are looking at. So I kind of abandoned that for a few years, and then after art school, I started doing like those characters again in the screen printing, and I kind of came back to it. So the way I was drawing and thinking was closer to what I was doing when I was 4 and 5 years old than it was when I was 18 and 19. But in my 20s, I kind of came back to it. You can't escape from who you are.
Right.
I can't explain it. The stuff just rocks my world. To me, it's the most beautiful thing. How an Indian person has found like inspiration from like Depression era America is something I can't really rationalize, but the advertising of that time, the typography, the posters, the letter for it's all just the most beautiful thing to me.
Right.
I,
Right.
I concur. I love that era. If I could pick a time to go back in, and maybe I was there, maybe I lived there in another lifetime, I don't know. But that specific era intrigues me, and I love everything from that era, all the different types of art, and like you were saying, the typography. I used to love watching Popeye cartoons. You know, they were in syndication, and I'd be at my grandparents' house and watching TV and just enthralled by these stories, but these characters. And I don't know, man. There's something
Yeah.
about it that's in my blood.
Yeah.
One of the things about it, I think there's like a few things at play. One, I mean, it was ubiquitous. It was everywhere, right? It was
Yeah.
just, it wasn't like some kind of style du jour. Practically every company, gas companies, electric companies, they all had mascots and cartoon characters, right? So some are really niche that like you see them down, like, oh wow, what's that? Others, obviously, like super popular, like the Michelin Man and stuff like. But every company was doing this. But there was a certain kind of hope in the way these corporations marketed themselves to consumers with a character. There was like kind of an accessibility, maybe because humans hadn't gone to the moon yet or something, but there was like a brightness ahead.
Mm.
Like looking for there's that futuristic vibe, right? Like something about like soon there'll be space travel, soon there'll be, so that kind of idea of like a world outside of our world was kind of exciting for humans. And it felt like there was so many wonderful possibilities. Robots and things like that, right? Were often characters for these corporations. There's tons of books out there on American graphics from that era where you just like page after page, like companies we haven't even heard of that have little cartoons and mascots. It's pretty wild.
That is cool.
I also had this thought yesterday, like that era and everything being, the depression. And it wasn't just one particular country, it affected everything worldwide practically. So being in the same space at the same time with all these, and this is my brain just, working kind of in the abstract, right? But what does that do when everybody's feeling this thing like this heaviness and this weight and just trying to survive, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
how that effects in a particular art form. Again, back to the Russians, right? Where it's been pretty dismal, the vast majority or all their history practically, in producing this magnificent, I think, this magnificent art, how that affects the mindset and where that takes a particular movement or a culture, right? Because art is what moves us as a culture, as a society, pushes us forward and makes us have these conversations, right? Like what you do.
Mhm. It makes us have these conversations, yet in a way that there was a strategic use of like graphics where it wasn't literal, it was like metaphorical, which was kind of brilliant. So you could get away with saying a lot of stuff. I don't know if you can get away with saying a lot of stuff now. I mean, I get some pretty angry messages.
I bet.
So you get hate mail?
I do, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. The hate mail is the funniest to me when somebody says, I have your books, I have some of your art, I have some of your toys, I have tattoos of your work on my body. Stay out of politics. I was disappointed to learn.
Right.
So they don't so that kind of gives me joy. Like, oh, you got to walk around now with my work, and you go, oh, I don't like this guy's politics. That kind of cracks me up. And it also pushes buttons too when people don't like the fact that they find out I'm Canadian. Like, how dare you make commentary about the United States? Like, who are you to draw this stuff? And I always just kind of think like, there's not a thing that happens in the United States that I mean the rest of the world feels at the ripple, right? I mean,
Right.
the United States of America is such a powerful force. in good and bad ways, right? Martin Short was asked why Canadians are so funny, and he said it's because we grew up watching our Canadian television, but as well as American television. And he's right, like the rest of the world is constantly looking at American stuff, at American culture, at the Kardashians, and TV shows, the music, everything, right? And that changes the entire world. So we all kind of, in a way, are looking at America as outsiders. But we know what's going on, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of wild.
Yeah. And who's to say why you can't have an opinion or say something that you're observing? I mean, I look at your art and it totally hits home. It's exactly how I'm feeling or what I think and speaks to me. And I'm just like, damn it, this guy is on the money, man. Like,
Thank you. One favorite one I get is somebody said to me, the desecration of the United States flag is against code, something, something. Basically said I'm breaking the law, and I replied with, well, good thing I'm Canadian.
well, let me just say this. So, as somebody that used to be fairly patriotic, which I'm no longer, like I think it's a farce. It's become this horrible thing in my book. And I had the utmost and I still do for our country and our flag. But to say that your art is offensive and it's illegal or whatever, it's not illegal. There is a flag code. Good Lord, I can walk out of my studio right now and probably out on the street and I'll see some dipshit. Actually, there's a flag place like right around the corner from my studio, but I'll see some dipshit in his big lifted pickup truck with an American flag, flying in the back and maybe a Trump flag on the other side. And technically, that is against the United States flag code. Like flying a flag that way is not an official sanctioned way to present the flag. It's actually disrespectful. Same thing with having it on a t-shirt.
Yep.
Same thing when you go, this also drives me crazy, when you go to a sporting event. I don't believe that there should be a national anthem. That's a thing that happened, I believe, during World War II. But they unfurled this huge flag that's about the size of a football field, right? With a billion people holding it. That's actually not the proper way to present a flag. So, for anybody that wants to hammer you on your representation of the flag or what you're saying with your art, tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
And the fact that the people that have tattoos of your work, and they don't like your politics, that is kind of like the ultimate FU, right?
Yeah. It's
Dude.
pretty great.
Yeah, I was going to say I was kind of one of those people that would tell celebrities to like shut your mouth, stay in your lane, shut your pie hole. But through the years, I've gotten far more wiser to realize like that's our only voice. We have people representing us that's running the government, and they're running it the way they want to run it, not by the people. So the right for you to protest, whether it's a painting or a sign or marching in the streets, as long as it's not violence, that's how we do. That's the right to petition, right? It's protected by the Constitution, but it's easy to say when you don't want to hear what they're saying. It's easy to say stay in your lane, right? But I applaud you for doing what you're doing, even if you're Canadian, making statements about the United States, because sometimes you get the voice that we don't hear because of propaganda, right? American propaganda. So you're getting stuff from the CBC or the BBC or wherever, and their perspective might be just a little different, that maybe it's more accurate, more true to life. And I think it's important to hear that.
You're right. Yeah.
So
Go ahead,
no,
Wes.
we'll talk about this later. I was just going to say
Sure.
Trump is giving him fodder for work, right?
Oh,
But we'll
geez.
talk about that a little later.
It's endless. No, I was actually going to ask the question. Have you always had this political mindset, or has that changed over time, especially during the Trump administration first and now?
Oh, yeah. I'm comfortable now saying I do political art and calling myself a political artist. But it all started pretty much 2016. In fact, I think it was I did with the flag again. I did an image about the Charlottesville attack. It ended up winning a gold medal at the Society of Illustrators and winning a bunch of awards. It was on the cover of a book about protest art in America and got me into some shows, and people really resonated with it. And I just kind of went with it. And like you said, like the word fodder for sure, right? The ideas just unfold. I mean, all you got to do is just like read the news and boom, there's something. So I did a bunch of pictures. And then during his administration, the Library of Congress acquired four of them for their permanent collection. And one of them was when he made that quote about, I think, big buttons or something. He made a joke about like, the nuclear buttons.
Okay.
And so I did a picture about that. And so while he was president, the Library of Congress got that work. And so I just kind of kept going at it. In 24, I did a bunch of images that were pro Kamala Harris, and that went viral. They really started going at. Then one of them was like this anti MAGA hat that I did. So I drew a graphic of her kind of stepping on a MAGA hat and put that on a hat that went out everywhere. And I couldn't give money to her campaign because it's against the law for me as a Canadian. So instead, I donated money to Planned Parenthood, which was one of her big causes in Canada. So, people would say to me, haha, you did all this stuff for no avail. I'm like, well, I mean, I helped raise money for Planned Parenthood. And when I gave them that money, they said that I made their week. And so, despite her not winning that presidency, I still tried to do like some good stuff. So her running did have a good kind of effect in that way. I'll go through phases. Like there's times where like a week or two go by, I don't even want to like think about politics. And then other times I just can't help it. And then I'll just draw a bunch of pictures. This January, in fact, I think I was like super busy and I was just cranking out picture after picture. I was really pissing people off because I was deconstructing the swastika. Oh my gosh. Talk about like getting people after you. Like even people who are, I guess we could say left wing, like that's a little extreme. That's too much. I'm
Mm,
like, well, hate is extreme and it's too much.
right.
I could say something and nobody cares. But if I draw a picture, all of a sudden the gravitas of that picture, it just upsets people to no end.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to pull up one of those images right now. This is one of them that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think this is amazing. We're working on this whole scenario in this country right now with this particular administration. I don't care what anybody says. You can make whatever argument you want to, but these Kool-Aid drinkers, I mean, this is what they're pushing is this fascism. And somebody needs to call it out. And it's beautiful that the Library of Congress, you as speaking out against what you're seeing, living in Canada, that they have a body of your work in their archives.
I feel honored because of that. And that's something also like that reminds me that I am doing the right thing. I don't know. At the end of all this, right, I just kind of, say what I got to say. I draw these pictures and, just sort of hope for the best. Yeah, maybe it's lost me some collectors. Maybe it's lost me some clients, but, I don't care. At the end of my life, I can say, well, I didn't self-censor or anything. I did what I wanted to do and I said what I wanted to say.
And I've read that, that's one of the, kind of the tenets of your work is that you don't self-edit or self-censor, that you really just go with what you feel. It's very intuitive, right? And the reality of the situation, if somebody is offended by this, well, guess what? There's a reason why you're offended by it. And the truth hurts. Like this is where we're at right now. Even in this past weekend, in the past week, when you, and I was reading something today, and I think every American or any rational American feels this. You think good Lord, it cannot get any dumber. And then he comes out and does something even more dumb, or one of his cabinet members says something or does something that's just ludicrous and nefarious and just stupid, right? Everything that we've tried to foster and build, and every country has problems, and we definitely have had this long history. If you're a student of history and you look at the history of the United States, there's always been something crazy going on in this country with an extreme group or some crazy people that are trying to usurp the government in some way or organization in some way, shape, or form. This is nothing new, but it is on a level that we haven't witnessed in our lifetime.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for saying that. I can never forget things like remember what was like the worst thing Obama did was wearing a tan suit, and that was just like like every Republican was losing their shit. Like, how dare he insult the office of the presidency? Like wearing a tan suit.
Right.
It's like that's such a big deal, and we've become so numb to insanity. It's like this guy's partying with somebody and they're eating babies and they're just doing all this horrific stuff. And we're all just like horrified. It's like we're all walking around with like PTSD, like trauma. Like, do I even want to open my eyes in the morning? What insanity am I going to have to deal with today? So making the pictures is cathartic. And that way it helps me kind of at least find some level of sanity to get through this stuff. Getting through these days, I mean, we all do what we can.
And it's interesting that this spills over into your country, right? Now you're adjacent to ours, you're our northern neighbors, if we can still call you neighbors. If you want a divorce, I totally get it, man. Like I know I would. I don't even want to be here at the moment. And I think a lot of Americans feel that way. But I mean, when you are feeling that PTSD, which I admit, I don't know how Wes feels. I think he feels some of that too, but I definitely feel that. Pretty much all my circle of friends, like attracts like. So we're all feeling this. And most of us have never been in this kind of situation in our lifetime. And, outside of protesting, we just don't, we just keep hoping that somebody that is rational and logical like steps up to the plate, and our various branches of government like put this guy in check with his nefarious administration.
Yeah, and hopefully, I guess everything will hinge on your midterms, right? Like what happens with that, like where things can go, and but even with that, like who knows, right? Numbers get fudged and stuff, and like I don't know, like I don't wish ill on any human being. I just can't. I'm a born pacifist. I just think the good and but there are times where I just think that like it would be good if he just woke up and said, I don't feel very well. I think somebody else should do this.
Right. I think that's what we're all hoping for. I mean,
Yeah.
you're seeing a lot more of talk of Article 25, trying to get rid of him out of office, which can happen, but it's highly unlikely. The thing that drives me crazy about this whole thing is the blatant stupidity of stomping on the Constitution when you take an oath to it, and yet you have no regard of it. When we have a close ally like Canada, and then you talk about like they're going to be our 51st state. And then, this whole thing of invading Greenland, and, it's just this misstep. The world used to look to the United States as like the city on a hill, right? Britain and Italy and any of those countries know that we would have their back in a minute. But yet we're willing to attack Iran without consulting our allies. Like Todd said, if you ever fucking read a book and was a student of history, you would know how this would all work out. You approach your allies, you say, this is what we want to do. Will you support us on that? And chances are they're going to. We need to knock out terrorism. I think the way we're doing it is not the way to do it. So it just makes me totally fucking insane. So when I see art like what you're making, I appreciate it because it's out there to make a statement, and maybe it'll stop somebody in their tracks and let them think for a moment and reevaluate how they feel. So political art is so important in a society that, is hammered with propaganda. And I think more than ever, we're hammered. And it's always been that way. Thomas Jefferson and Adams hated each other. They were best friends, hated each other, and then became good friends afterwards because it was this vicious political banter back and forth, you know?
I remember I was talking about those two brothers from Oklahoma earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so right after 9/11, they had a studio down on Broadway and they phoned me and said, Gary, like we're like stuck here. And I said, yeah, no problem. I'm going to wire you some money. Don't worry about it. I know that you're in a really bad situation. And so I sent them some money and then they rejected it. They didn't accept it. And then my bank said, oh, it was sent back. I'm like, what? And then a week later, they phoned me and they said, oh, yeah, all you had to do was like prove that you had a business down on Broadway and Wall Street, this area of the city. And then you got a check. The whole planet was writing checks to New York City because everybody was like just so upset and emotionally upset for New York City. And then it felt like New York was this international place that belonged to the planet, but just happened to be the United States of America. And the whole world knew that. There was something emotional about everybody wanting to help New Yorkers. It was sort of like where we all wanted it to just be intact because it was like this, it's a beautiful place, right? And that feeling, that shared kind of like global like responsibility of like, let's look after each other. I don't know if it's gone away. A lot of like my friends do feel that there's a troll in your government and nobody is holding it against the awesomeness of the United States of America, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we all know, like, and we all have stories. Some friends even have like real estate down there. Some friends, I have lots of family down there. Like America is like a big part of our lives and stuff. So, I mean, Todd, yeah, we love you. You are a neighbor, and that'll never go away. But we know that this person has infiltrated your government, but it's not. I mean, I don't see him as American.
Yeah, he's Trumpian.
Yeah.
He cares about nothing but himself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's disheartening. It's a disheartening time, you know. I don't want to feel this way about our government, but it feels there's days like we said, like we've already touched on, where it feels pretty hopeless. And you gotta, either you step away from it for a little bit and try to reboot yourself, or you have to go seek out other things that do give you hope. Art is one of those things that gives you hope, right? Going to a gallery and seeing friends and having lovely, intelligent conversations that happen around art. That is what has at least gotten me through. I think Wes would say the same thing, that
Mm-hmm.
interacting with these folks really helps get us through our day to day.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm going to pull up another image here, which you recently posted, which is brilliant. And you have, all kinds of different ones in the same realm, but this one is a silhouette of Trump. He has his red tie, and it's the shape of a missile, and it's pointed towards the world. It's brilliant, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you always, all the stuff that you do is analog, right? You're an analog guy. You're not doing digital stuff.
So everything I do starts out as analog. And for some works, what I'll do is because I've already screen printed them, I'll just do like a quick little digital version of it and scan my inks and mask them and then I'll draw like a little silhouette in the earth and stuff like that. And then I'll kind of quickly assemble it digitally. But I do have like analog works that they look very similar to this, but this one was assembled digitally, but it's sort of kind of like Frankenstein together from traditional stuff.
Now, was this particular image, was this for a client? Was this for an editorial client for a story or anything like that? Or was this something you did on your own?
I did on my own. It's personal work. But what'll happen sometimes though is I'm on the radar of the nation, and so they'll put some of my stuff on their website. Um, like once or twice in their magazine too, and that's really nice. Worked for the Progressive as well. But yeah, most of these are just personal pieces.
Gotcha. And for people that are listening, a lot of these pieces, not all, but a lot of the pieces you can find in Gary's store on his website. There's a plethora that you offer as far as apparel and prints, and you have your toys on there, some of your toys. Talk a little bit about some of those other offerings that you have.
Yeah. One quick thing I want to say is that people will message me too and ask me if they could get a tattoo of an existing work that I've done and how much money would it cost. So for several years, I was just telling people, I don't want your money. Why don't you just take what you can afford and just give it to Black Lives Matter? But lately, for the last year or so, I've just been telling people if they could just take that money and donate it to the Samir Project, the children of Palestine. So whatever they could afford. And usually, what people do is they'll send me proof like a donation receipt. Like I don't even want to see that. I'm just asking you to do the kindness of your own heart, whatever you can afford. So that's been a good thing. Yeah, so, some of the stuff, it is lighthearted, it's fun, and it's just like my way of making money. And I'll make prints of it, images people like. Other stuff, which is, political stuff, it will have like a component where I will donate to a charity because I do think that if I'm making a message about social justice or something like that, then there should, and people will ask for prints and stuff. I do want to like direct some money to a cause to let people know that I'm not just, it's not just a commercial venture for me. I do have that component, obviously. But yeah, I pretty much just respond to a demand. People want stuff, and I'll just make prints of it and shirts and iPhone cases and coffee mugs.
I'm going to pull up the one that you posted before we got on this podcast today. And this particular one, I'm pulling this off Gary's Facebook. I'm sure it's on his Instagram as well, but this is a larger one that we can look at. But it's the American flag with the stripes of red or running drops of blood. So did you just like finish this in the last 24 hours?
This one I did a couple of weeks ago, and I just posted it today. I have like tons and tons of pictures and ideas I'll do, and some of them will directly relate to like an event. But today it just sort of felt right. Like I think the deadline is what, like 5 or 6 p.m. today. I don't know what he said, threatening Iran, and so I thought it was kind of appropriate to post this.
It's really powerful, man.
It is. I like this one a lot.
Is this one that you will could possibly see putting in on a t-shirt or as a print that you'll offer at some point?
Sure. I'll even like people will message me, and I'll just even make like a one-off print and just charge them accordingly for that. I have my prints made at a real printing house, so they're archival papers with archival inks, and I'll use the prints will be like really high quality, like on Somerset velvet or arches, like I mean stuff that I can't, super expensive sheet claying machines, printers I don't have. So I always make sure people get a really nice print. I'm Gary Taxali, and you're listening to the Tenet Podcast.
Talk about the usage of these pages. These are pages of books that you're using at times that you
Yeah,
repurpose.
that's correct. Yeah. So when I moved back from New York City to Toronto in my parents' basement, I found a bunch of old textbooks from India, my uncles and my dad, and just kind of discarded there. And they were beautifully aged. And so I just started drawing on them. And I liked it so much, I kind of kept continuing. So I'll find old books in garage sales, antique stores. There's one antique store near here, and they would just burn books because stuff that nobody wanted. So I would rescue these books from like the fire pit. A lot of them are just, I mean, they're out of date, like, concepts and stuff that they are like textbooks that nobody wants, and they're perfect little canvases.
I love that. I love that thought of repurposing something that's just going to be destroyed, right?
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit. So are some of the pages, do they have print on them and then you paint over the print? Is that how you do it? Or are these like the front pages where there's no print on them at all?
So yeah, both. So mostly in my career, it's actually an object. So I screen print. So this blue and this red, that's actually taken from me screen printing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was I did different shapes, but for the digital purpose, I just kind of mask it. But when I do a gallery show, then you'll see something that looks like this, but it'll be an original, and it'll just be like a like the same size paper and stuff. So a lot of times people can't really tell. I mean, you both could probably tell because you're trained artists. If you kind of get in there and look, oh yeah, that's a little bit of Photoshop trickery there. But yeah.
I read making art for you is really about the process. Like the end result is great, but it's really about the process. Talk a little bit about that. And does that hold true still?
It is. It becomes even more true the more you do this stuff because I see pictures. And I'm sure you both experienced this too, where you don't even remember making them. Like, oh wow, I did this, you know. And the stuff that we make is just a record of the process. It's just like a little historical artifact of where we were at a moment of time. It's like an exhalation. It's not really who you are. Who you are is that process. If you do it again, it's going to be something different, or the parameters are going to change, and so it's not going to be exactly the same or whatever. So when you honor the process, when you realize that really what is art, the process of making, and to sort of kind of live comfortably in that space, I think is where true enjoyment comes. There's a great Andy Warhol quote that I really like. I'll tell my students this one. He said that never worry if your art is good or bad. Let other people worry about it. And while they're deciding whether it's good or bad, just make more art. And I love that notion of, I mean, he's absolutely right. I mean, there's dead artists who become popular and unpopular according to like the art museums. Like people will go crazy for a certain era or certain prints and stuff, and then boom, so somebody will buy it for millions of dollars, and then everybody will talk about it as being like the greatest art in the world. But it's all false, right? It has nothing to do with creativity. To stay there too because it sort of keeps me on my toes, and as a workman, I'm a working artist. It's a job, right? There's a humility, just like making every single day, and nothing really happens that's like exciting or sexy or like it's a very boring thing to just make, or right? It doesn't look like it. It's just over and over and over again, year after year, month after month. But it's special and exciting because of the process. And so I think a 4-year-old at the same time, I mean, they feel the same way, and in that unhinged feeling of creativity without thinking about promotion or branding or paying the bill. You're just in that moment making. And if you don't lose that, I think, one can have like a nice life as an artist. Like Dr. Seuss said, adults are obsolete children.
Uh, you expressed your love of music, and obviously you have an affinity for the blues. I also read that at least at one point in your life, I'm assuming you still do, but you loved classical Indian music, and that you would, when you went to India, you would purchase some of these classical albums, that you couldn't find elsewhere. And there was something, obviously it's probably part of your DNA. I love that kind of music too, and Ravi Shankar and some of that raga, I think it's what it's called, music, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Speak a little bit about that, and then talk about the work that you've done in the actual music industry itself.
So I saw Ravi Shankar a few times, and it's an incredible thing because the sitar player will go through this phase where it almost like it's like this droning thing, and what's happening is that he's energetically trying to establish a connection with the audience. And then, and that connection is of the moment, right? In a way, it's kind of like jazz, right? And the other musicians are watching him, and then he'll establish what that raga is according to how he feels, and then repeat it. And then they have certain, I guess, like cues and stuff to know to like jump in, but they'll also have spaces to improvise as well. And then when you watch it, you're witnessing the thing. What you're witnessing is like there's a first timeness to it, this spontaneous kind of a human being making something for you because of who you are. You know, it's not at you, it's with you. And that always like kind of blew me away. And I mean, you could say the exact same thing about John Coltrane. Does the exact same thing, right? With a different instrument. Like figuring out the vibe and then just kind of going with it. And to me, there's something that not having like this sort of predetermined, staged kind of static thing that you just deliver to people over and over again is exposing because you're exposing your flaws, your idiosyncrasies, your mistakes, your flops. So one of the things that I did after I moved back from New York City was I got sick of my style, and I said I'm not going to draw anymore with a pencil. I'm going to just go with the marks that happen and stay committed to them and and forcing myself to draw old pages and book covers, and grabbing stuff and just going at it. There's no going back. I can't erase anything, right? The whole thing has to just be pitched, right? It's a surface. It's a piece of cloth. I'm using gouache or acrylic and I'm drawing on it or ink. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. And the rawness of that experience was sort of like, I think, influenced by what Indian classical music would do. Let's just see what happens. And there's like a feeling of tension of because I don't know where it's going. And so I would even tell art directors like, oh, okay, so um, I'll do this illustration. Here's a really rough sketch. Oh, what's the palette going to be like? Well, I don't know because like I have a few of these book covers I like, but I don't know how my ink is going to respond on it, right? It's going to be what it's going to be. And so I would let them know they're just going to get what they get. I also don't even know. I'm just going to jump right in there. And the character and the form is going to change a little bit. And I'm going to stamp it and remove parts of it with masking tape and doodle on it and kick it around a bit. Maybe I'll do a little bit of collage. And not only that, I'm going to scan it, but the edges, the shadows are going to be part of the art. So please, let's not do a crop. Let's let the thing sit on the whiteness of the page. So for all its ugliness and its rawness, let's treat it like an object. It is what it is, right? And that feeling of being exposed, I mean, it's kind of a scary place to go, right? I can't fix it. You can't fix something like that digitally. Like you can tell, right? It's gonna look like it's been photoshopped or something. And there were times when, like a client on Entertainment Weekly or something, like, remember the art director was like freaking out. He's like, this is like really raw for the kind of stuff we normally print. The art director may want to like talk about the colors or something. I'm like, then I'm just gonna, you have to pay me for another picture because this is all I got. And so art directors actually kind of started knowing that, like you kind of get what you get with me. Like it's the whole thing from the beginning. It doesn't have a degree of spontaneity to it, and it's worked for me. It's just made me more confident with my ideas, with the execution of my work. Even commissions, people will commission me. They want to buy something, And I'm like, I don't mind them telling me, that they like English bulldogs and tacos. Fine, I'll throw something like that in there, whatever. But they're also going to get what they get, right? And um, that's it.
Well, if they're going to order a commission from you, you would think they want what you offer anyway, instead of something different, So,
Yeah.
but people are weird and they have very specific needs and wants, and I totally get that too. So,
It's nice to be in that position. Did it take you a while to get to the point where you were able to advocate for yourself and say, look, this is what I do? Like, why would you even be calling me if you didn't think that, this is what you're going to get?
It's nice now, wasn't it? At the time,
yeah,
it was like, well, I remember an art director said to me, well, call me back if you want to do your old style, like my more painting sort of. It was like too derivative of other artists. It was uncomfortable, but I also have always been motivated by staying true to myself and let the good stuff will follow from it. If you're gonna roll the dice on anything in life, it might as well be your creativity and invest in it 100% and let the world respond to it the way it does rather than doing it in a safe way. Yeah, I mean there was times where I regretted it and I'm like, this is a very kind of niche thing that I'm doing, but it had remarkable effects, like where clients would come to me and say, I have no idea how you do what you do, but I'm calling from Vodafone and we have a 60, 70-foot billboard in London, and we want you to do an illustration. So it's a little tiny picture because I mean, books are small, right? They're 5 by 7. And I did the illustration and they scanned it, and the fibers of the paper and the little scratches and even a little bit of my fingerprints, all that raw stuff is on a billboard. It's like massive on a billboard. And I love it. I'm like, look at how flawed that thing is. And then people are like, it's a bit disarming to see something that's not slick, that
right.
is an object, like a raw object as a drawing. But so some people like it, some people don't.
That's where the whole kind of lowbrow thing comes into play, right? Which I
Yeah,
love. I love that rawness. I think all art, I mean, geez, like we've already talked about the whole music thing and how it can go sideways, right? Like I like that rawness. I like the fact that there may be a mistake in there. That's what makes it, you know?
exactly. And because, we're designed that way. Like who amongst us doesn't look back? Like, I don't know if you like listen to your past podcast. Oh, okay. Why did I say this? Or I should have said that. I mean, we're kind of hard on ourselves, right?
Right.
But when you're in the moment and you're just making stuff, that's why I put the process on the pedestal, not the work.
Mm,
I mean, you think about like people, right? What makes a person attractive or interesting, right? It's not the perfection, it's the flaws, right? Like you would admire, like, say, a beautiful woman, and you go, wow, she's really beautiful, or she's really unique looking. But the things that make her unique looking, or that man, that other person, is not the perfection. It's the things that are imperfect, you know?
Exactly. The imperfect things, it connects us to other humans. There's a really great scene in Good Will Hunting. I love it when Robin Williams and Matt Damon are having a conversation, and Matt Damon has just been like this total prick to Robin Williams. And then the next day he comes back from therapy and they go for a walk, and Robin Williams just gives it to him. It talks about the meaning of love. It talks about how his dead wife, the thing he remembers is her farting in her sleep and the stupid stuff like that that connect, like makes him miss her. And like what you were just saying, like all the stuff that is not romanticized as perfect. It's the flawed stuff that makes us amazing. And now he's telling like this young guy, you're flawed, but embrace your flaws. Don't try and cover them up. And that's when you'll find true happiness. I thought it was a really great scene, amazing writing in that film.
yeah.
It's so true. So true. So you've done stuff in the music industry. You've done album covers, you've done posters, concert posters. Talk a little bit about that work. And you've even received Grammy nomination for one of your album covers. Talk about that.
Working with musicians is amazing because other creative people who they do their own thing, but they're creative, get creativity and honor it. And so I've had like creative freedom so much in that world. Like this year and last year, I did album art for this band called Half Japanese. I don't know if you've heard of them, but Half Japanese are this art rock kind of band. I think they started in the late 70s, 80s. Kurt Cobain was really a big fan of this band. In fact, when he committed suicide, he was wearing a Half Japanese t-shirt. So these two brothers, David and Jad Fair, they're also artists. And I've been listening to their music for decades. So it's been really fun doing their album cover. But when I did the artwork, Chad said to me, I don't want to put the name of our band or the title on the cover. I just want to do it as a sticker on the cellophane wrap. So when somebody unwraps it, all they see is the art. And I thought that was really sweet
Yeah.
to sort of do that. This is a painting, by the way. So yeah, that's been really nice. Aimee Mann was the musician who I did the artwork for when we were nominated for a Grammy for Best Album Art, and that was a lot of fun because her and I became friends. And when I did this thing, I mean, so this is an actual object, right? So I stamped my name in the corner, and then I said to Amy, "Oh, my signature is too big. Like we should remove that or reduce it in Photoshop." And then she said, "No, that's the best part of it." I thought that was really sweet of her to say.
Mm.
She gave me total creative freedom. She gave me her music first to listen to. So I had like this special gift like that I treasured. So I listened to it and I illustrated all the songs, including this album cover. And she liked it so much. I did a few tour posters for her. And then her and I became really good friends. We like talk all the time. We text each other. I stayed with her last time I was in LA, and we make art together. We do like little comic jams and stuff. She's a really creative person. She has a lot of creative friends, and that was really nice. Like even the way I wrote Aimee Mann, I didn't even draw that with pencil. I just like did that with ink, and then I screen printed it on that paper. It was like a one-shot deal. When I look back and think about how cool it was of her to let me work in such a free form way, it's really nice.
Yeah.
It is
It's a
really cool,
wonderful.
man.
Yeah, it's a wonderful piece.
You have a great name, right? So I agree with her. Like having your name on there, I mean that it just looks cool and it sounds cool, you know? Um, and what a cool experience that now you have this friend, right?
Right.
This connection with this
Yeah.
person, and it's continued on other than just like the specific assignment, the job that you were doing. I mean, that's pretty special.
It is special. She's an incredible person, so smart and funny and insightful and in tune with her creativity. We have like the best conversations about art and creativity. It's really wonderful.
You've had this amazing life thus far, like I've said, like you've done, and this is what excites me about your work too, is that I don't want to see the same thing over and over again. Obviously, you have a very distinctive style, but I mean, you're doing a lot of different things. Talk about some of the things that you're most proud of that have happened that you've done in your career.
Sure. So you mentioned a few minutes ago my name. So Taxali is not my family's original name. It was changed 300 years ago. It used to be Vora, which I think is a pretty common Indian name. But my ancestor invented a coin that was difficult to counterfeit. So the Maharaja in India knighted this guy Taxali, which means maker of money, maker of mint, a shepherd of the mint. And so I always thought that was like kind of a cool little anecdote about my name. And then, well, yeah, in 2012, the Royal Canadian Mint commissioned me to do 6 quarters, and they gave me total creative freedom. I did the typography. They let me stamp my initials on each coin. All they did was give me the themes, and I ran with them. And the one I'm most proud, well, actually, I'm proud of getting away with a few different things in the different coins here. One of them being in the Canada one, there's a little character sticking its tongue out. And the vice president of the Mint and I had lunch, and he's like, "Yeah, I was wondering, like, why would you draw that?" And then I looked up your work. I'm like, "Oh, that's just something that you do in your artwork." So we thought, okay, that's his thing. And I thought that was really nice that they were that cool about it. But above that, the wedding coin. So I was struggling with coming up with an idea for that. And then I realized, wait a second, I'm approaching this incorrectly. Because in Canada, same-sex marriage is legal, so I should represent the union of marriage in a non-gender specific way. And that was a real hit in the gay community. A lot of people felt like, that representation was there. This coin represents everybody. And so I was super proud of that. It was a lot of fun. I was dealing with these engravers at the Royal Canadian Mint. These were all engraved by hand after I did the design. So I would have to give them like different levels about what would recede and stuff and how it would look kind of as a bit of a relief, a bit of a 3D kind of thing, cast a bit of a shadow. And so I was working closely with the engravers, this amazing people, and they gave me a tour of the mint. We have 2 mints in Canada. We have the mass production mint, which is, I believe, in Winnipeg, which does all our regular currency. And in Ottawa, our nation's capital, is where they do kind of like the limited edition coins. Now, they made, I think, 100,000 of each one of these. So they were kind of considered limited edition. Um, so that's where they minted them. So they gave me a tour, and it was the craziest thing. Like the president of the Mint at the time was like this old guy in a wheelchair. He looked like a Bond villain. And the whole place looked like it was something right out of a Bond movie. And we go to the basement, and I'm in this room, and they tell me, yeah, this is 80% of Canada's gold reserve in this room. And I was like, oh my God, like you could pick up like a brick, and just like toss it up in the air and stuff. But of course, they did like, intense like background checks and everything.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to wear any metal in there, so I had to wear like sweatpants. And in fact, one of the funniest things I saw was, do you know that scene in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory where uh, there are squirrels, and the jobs of the squirrels are they shake a little nut, and then they put the good nut down one chute, and the bad nut goes down another chute. So that's all these little nuts are doing that. So at the mint, there was this elderly gentleman, and his job was to look at the newly minted coins, and he would examine them. And if there was any flaws, he would throw them in the reject chute, and they would go back to be like minted again. And the good ones were the ones that they would package. It was either good or bad. And I'm watching, like, this is his job.
Wow.
And I thought it was like the funniest thing. So yeah, the Mint just loved it when I told them my last name means maker of money. So that's a great story.
It's like meant to be, man.
Right.
It was meant to be. That's funny. So that was a big project that I was really proud of. What else? I wrote and illustrated a kid's book called This Is Silly. I was proud of it because I purposely wrote a book that was a bit of an FU to children's literature, in that I hated children's books growing up that had morals, that had lessons. And I thought if I ever do one, I'm not going to do a book that says, and that is the reason why penguins don't need to fly. That kind of bullshit.
Right.
I wanted to do something that didn't really have a beginning or an end. There was no real arc or anything. It was just about acting silly. And it was also a little bit of an FU to my kindergarten teacher, who wrote in my report card complaining to my parents that I was always acting silly. Yet at home, I would draw silly pictures, and my mother, like, she couldn't stop laughing. And I thought, my mom thinks this is great. This teacher doesn't think it's great. So I'm going to go by what my mom, is responding to,
Right.
and to do this silly thing. So I dedicated my book to my mom, who let me be silly and then basically have a silly career.
That's awesome.
That
I
is
love
awesome,
that.
man.
Yeah.
So you just did this on your own, or somebody approached you to do this?
Scholastic approached me. The vice president and creative director, David Saylor, phoned me and said, "Do you want to do a children's book?" And I said, "No." Um, I illustrated one for Harcourt Brace, and they never published it because the writer said that she was having nightmares about my work.
Oh my God.
So when he phoned me, I said, "I'll only do it in one condition. It's going to be my own story." He goes, "Well, do you have any stories?" I said, "I do." And I sent him the story, and he said, "Okay, we want to publish this." And he said, "Great." And from the beginning, it was like loggerheads. He said, um, "It would be really wonderful if you could do like these really bright paintings." I said, "No, I want to screen print this entire, all the illustrations." And so he kind of hummed and hawed and agreed. And so all the illustrations I screen printed, and one of the spreads has 11 screens, which is kind of a little bit crazy to do for one picture, to that many screens. It's really a screen printer's nightmare. But I worked with this guy, and I did it. There's no black ink in any of the illustrations. It's just dark brown. I wanted it to have a really organic feel to it, where you can sort of see a little bit like the flaws and stuff. It's not like my work on old paper, but it is screen printed, and it wasn't a success as a children's book. A lot of people thought it was weird. They wanted a moral. Kids loved it. The parents didn't.
That should be the proof of the pudding right
Right
there.
there.
If
Yeah.
the kids love it, who cares what the parents think, you know?
Exactly.
I learned that from Maurice Sendak, from his 1954 Caldecott speech after he won for Where the Wild Things Are. He got angry letters saying, "You're supposed to be this like famous kids book author, illustrator, and my kid doesn't like your book." He says, "Well, then don't give your kid the book." Or, "I don't like your book." "Well, then don't buy it. If
Right.
somebody likes something, you buy it, right?" And so I kind of went by his vibe, and that's the reason actually why I did a book. It was kind of also a little bit of the tip of the hat to him.
And what kind of work have you been, or what kind of projects have you been working on as of late?
Yeah, so down the line, I have some work. I can't talk about too much because of NDA stuff, but like in the theater Broadway world, I'm doing some stuff there. I worked with this boarding school up here near Toronto, and I did a huge mural for them, and I did their yearbook, so I might be doing some more stuff with them. That was really nice. I'm working on a solo show next year for New Orleans that I'll do. Yes, this is the mural. You know what was great about this? I used their archives. I didn't damage their archives. I scanned them.
Mm-hmm.
So they were really happy that I sort of told the school's history, but in my own way. It's a really old boarding school. There were such lovely people to work with. They gave me like creative reign, and I had a really good time. So working on that solo show, and in 2 years I have another solo show which is at a municipal gallery. There's always illustration work, commissions, group shows coming up as well that I'm working towards. I'm working on probably a piece next week for a show. I forget where the gallery is, but it's kind of an homage to Pee Wee Herman. And
Oh,
so,
cool.
yeah, so that'll be fun. So I'm working on that. And there's also illustration commissions I regularly get from like various clients. Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
amazed that you even
Busy.
sleep, man.
No doubt.
Do you feel that way too?
I sleep. I haven't done an all-nighter in years. It's been a long time. Actually, I damaged my hand a long time ago by doing all-nighters. And I think I was like so excited to say yes to everything that I spent like one weekend just painting straight. And my girlfriend at the time was feeding me soup at my easel because I didn't have time to take a break to wash my hands and to finish this painting. And then I couldn't feel where my fingers ended and the brush began. It was all numb. I hurt my hand and it scared me. So ever since then, I take breaks. I don't overwork or anything like that because it's just not worth it.
Mm.
The solo show again is happening when in 2027?
Actually, it's a two-person show. It's me and an artist from Michigan. I believe she lives maybe in Ann Arbor. Her name is Niagara Detroit, and she does a lot of like pop art, very like Roy Lichtenstein, but from like kind of a female perspective. She's really badass. She's also she was a singer
That's
in
right.
yes,
She played with the guitarist from the Stooges for a while when he was
Ron
alive.
Ashton.
Ron Ashton, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So she's like a punk rock goddess. She's so nice. I love her and I love her work. I first met her 26 years ago in Detroit. I had a show there. She came and we've been friends since. And so that's a two-person show at Mortal Machine Gallery in March of 27. And that'll really be nice to do with her share. I guess I haven't been to the space, so I don't know how they present it, if they'll give me one room or her another or divide it up. But and then in 28, I'm doing a solo show at a municipal gallery here. So I live in a city called Mississauga, which is right next to Toronto. And so the city of Mississauga, it's a really big city. It's a massive place, but they have an art gallery. So I'll be doing a show with them.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you are one busy man. Holy buckets.
One thing we always ask, and especially someone that has your experience and I'm assuming has a fairly decent size collector base, how do you go about pricing your art? Or do you work with the gallery that you're showing at to facilitate that?
The way I price in a way, it's sort of according to what was established by galleries early on. So I sort of stay in that kind of range, I guess, according to like even like size, right? Like, so a piece that is like 8 by 10 will, maybe be like, I don't know, 1,000 to 2,000 or something in that range. And then the bigger something is, the more involved. It is kind of a bit by the square inch in that way. It's not mathematical. Sometimes it's just by the complexity and the way I feel like, oh, I really worked hard on this and I don't mind if it doesn't sell so fast. It's what kind of price it high to see what happens. Other times, if it's if it's a big group show, I'll keep my price sort of fair and along the lines with most of what the other artists are doing in that show. Prints are like reasonable. Like small prints are $50, a big print's a couple hundred. Nothing is too crazy. I mean, maybe one crazy thing was a series of bronze sculptures I did because they were one-offs, and that was for a collector because I wasn't creating multiples that I could sell to other people. I had to factor in the price and then like you're getting the only one that exists. I'm getting like the artist proof, but you're getting one of one. And so that was more money that I charged him for that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap this up. Anything else that you want to talk about or mention, promote before we leave off for the day?
The only thing I really want to say is that, we live in the world where We're at the mercy of like, corporations and the government, and they try and take stuff away from us and make our lives hard. But one thing nobody can ever take away from us is creativity. And creativity is something that is something that'll never fail you, right? It'll help you get through things. It'll help you deal with stuff. It'll help you remember stuff. It'll help you forget stuff. It'll help you stay sane. It'll help you vent. It'll help you, like, as an alternative to screaming in your pillow. And it's not to be, like, I think, dismissed as a form of a natural human expression that we're all capable of. Nobody has to, like, be this fantastic artist or musician to turn it into something that's going to change the world. Even if you do it for yourself, I think it's an important thing. And I hope people will kind of, think about their own creativity and find solace in that.
Right on. That's
well spoken.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Gary, thank you so very much for carving out time in your day to speak with us. And I just really appreciate, we say this all the time on the podcast, that time is the most important thing that we have. So the fact that you carved out time for us today, that means the world to us. So thank you.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be here. And I love speaking with both of you. Thank you so much. And it was a really great conversation. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it immensely. I love your work. Keep your voice going. Don't let the naysayers, I know you will, don't let the naysayers stop you, man, because this is the kind of stuff we need in troubling times. And I really respect what you're doing. You do a wonderful job. Thank you.
Yes.
Again, follow Gary on Instagram at Taxali, and check out Gary's phenomenal work at his website, garytaxali.com. As usual, I will have all this and more in this week's episode notes. For the Tenant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown.
Have a great week.